자, A그룹입니다. 김태훈 선수, 봉중근 선수, 김성기 선수, 또 최진우 선수 4명의 선수가 이 A그룹에 소속이 되어 있습니다.
What you're watching right now is one of the first broadcasts of Starcraft. This video is from 1999, about a year after Brood War was released. The world of esports was small and had yet to achieve the overwhelming fan base that can be seen today. So much of the success of esports can be traced back to Brood War, but it wasn't always the refined, professional, top-quality, gentleman's esport that it is today. In this video, we're going to be taking a general look at the growing pains of Starcraft as a video game, and then taking a broad overview of Brood War as an esport from 1999 to 2007. Starcraft Vanilla, or Starcraft without Brood War, was nicknamed Orcs in Space for a long time, and had a ton of development issues. This is a screenshot of Starcraft on the Warcraft 2 engine. It's not very pretty, and it didn't really work. If you're in the historian spirit, or an avid programmer, or just looking for something to do, I heavily suggest checking out Code of Honor, a blog from one of the programmers in the early days of Blizzard, to learn more about StarCraft's development. In the early to mid-90s, working for an upstart growing company that was Blizzard, programming issues were definitely common. However, unlike many other games from that era, the issues of its development did not hinder StarCraft, but rather really let it bloom. What would StarCraft be without the mineral walk hack that had become so integral to StarCraft, it was intentionally put into StarCraft 2? Who doesn't love watching the tyrant Jaedong mess up because of AI just like you would in Brood War in a professional Pro League game, one that he would actually go on to win, by the way, despite this huge mess up on his ramp? While these issues were not intentional, there is one that people get wrong a lot. I see it on the forums, I hear it in daily conversation, and that's the idea that limited unit selection was a sign of the times, that they actually would have loved to change it to have as many as you would want, just like in StarCraft 2. That is actually not correct, and there is a bit of proof for that. If we go back to the Code of Honor blog that I mentioned earlier, he talks about Warcraft's development. That actually, I assume they just kept the philosophy for StarCraft and then changed in StarCraft 2. We can see here in this paragraph that he says, "Later in the development process, and after many design arguments between team members, we decided to allow players to select only 4 units at a time based on the idea that users would be required to pay attention to their tactical deployments rather than simply gathering a mob and sending them into the fray all at once." Now, I know people will also note that he prefaced this paragraph by saying multiple unit selection was funky, but, you know, I read design arguments and take that to kind of mean what it says. Whether you're for or against limited unit selection is for another video entirely, but I wanted to give more insight into the development of StarCraft as a game. While designing an esport is a huge field of research now, and you will see debates on skill ceiling and skill floor till the end of time, designers of the original starter esports, if you will, were simply trying to make the best game possible without thinking about a competitive scene. With all that in mind, let's look at exactly that. The competitive scene of StarCraft 1 and its life as an esport. With the basis of StarCraft as a game, I suppose, kind of set now, let's go into StarCraft as an esport. After all, that's why most of you are watching. You watch StarCraft as an esport, whether it's StarCraft 2 or Brood War. Believe it or not, there was something before Brood War. Never forget StarCraft Vanilla. StarCraft Vanilla wasn't really balanced. In fact, it was probably incredibly imbalanced. And a lot of that had to do with Mutalisk. Actually, even before Mutalisk Micro reached its full potential, it was a pretty strong unit. Brood War, released 8 months after StarCraft Vanilla, fixed a lot of those issues by adding some of the most iconic units we know today. Terrans got the Valkyrie and the Medic. Protoss got Corsairs, DTs, and kind of as a consequence, Dark Archons. Zerg got their Lurkers and Devourers. These units are not only so important to the balance of the game, but are arguably the most iconic units of the races. There were technically 2 other Blizzard-authorized expansions, by the way, Insurrection and Retribution, and of course, who could forget the N64 Vanilla port? As an expansion, it was still a beautiful, beautiful game. That's actually the version, the only version I knew of StarCraft until about 2006. Now, StarCraft would one day rise to the levels of having a friggin' airport hangar as a tournament stage, with Flash walking out of an airplane, but it started small. So small and so weird. This is an OSL in 2000. That white dude is Grrrr, and he was pretty good. This is really what they wore, maybe to hype the idea of science fiction. I'm actually not too sure, but the fashion wasn't actually too out there for Korea in the early 2000s, so this was kind of I think this is like the most popular band, Shinhwa, at the time, so great fashion sense all around, although I guess we're one to judge. America wasn't so great in the early 2000s either. That aside, here we are now in a video from 2001. A pretty cool kid named Boxer started making waves, and Brood War really started to kick off as an esport, something that people actually fangirled over, bought tickets for, religiously attended every single tournament, followed their favorite players. It was really the start of something amazing. If you're interested in reading more about Boxer, or just in general, I guess, the rise of Brood War, even from like its earlier days, like from its actual release in Korea, and honestly you should be interested in both things, he wrote an autobiography a while ago that you can read with the link down below. I think you have to use the Wayback Machine, but at least it's around. As we watch the years roll by, it got a little less funny and a little more professional. You have the OSL, a tournament run by OGN, a broadcasting company set up specifically for Brood War esports that turned into a huge general broadcasting company, and of course now does, probably most famously, the League of Legends tournaments. This tournament is what gave us the ever-loved 2007 Ever intro, and I'll take a second to let you guys reminisce about how awesome it is. There's definitely a reason that's one of the most well-loved intros in StarCraft, but let's continue. OGN was the big, prestige, awesome tournament, but there was another tournament too, named the MSL. Not nearly as prestigious, but it was Bisu's playing ground. Unfortunately, Bisu won 3 MSLs and never won a single OSL, rather, so that kind of sucks for him. Well, the WCG was running as well, but it was really kind of an excuse to see a couple well-loved foreigners fall to the eventual Korean versus Korean finals, which probably sounds pretty familiar if you've watched any StarCraft esports at all. Of course, it's also where Tasteless started down his career as a caster, so I can't ever forget WCG, even if it is dead now.
We have Terran, top left, Yosh, and we have Day, bottom left, with Zerg.
A Korean winning the medal. In this case, when we got 2 of them, obviously one of them is going to come out on top.
Now you have the OSL, the MSL, and the WCGs, but not many tournaments could match the hype and prestige of Pro League. Starting in 2005, Kespa decided it would be better to have 2 team leagues kind of smushed together, the KPGA Team League, which I couldn't actually find that much more information about, and the OGN Team League. Kespa wasn't really wrong with this, really, but there was some controversy over their claim to broadcasting rights, which you guys can research on your own if you're really interested in what happened there. Pro League gave a lot of rookies a chance to shine, a stable team league, and a reason to cheer for teams as opposed to individual members, a point that is unfortunately missing from current StarCraft, being, a 1v1 game that is naturally where it really goes to, but that wasn't, totally the case with Pro League. Pro League helped bring in and cement a lot of truly huge sponsors as well. Let's take a look at some of those teams and those sponsors, actually. You might recognize some of these names, but maybe you don't realize the significance of their sponsor. Here we have CJ Entis, that is owned by CJ, or was a while ago. And CJ is actually a huge company in Korea. It does entertainment, food, media, home shopping, something about biotechnology. Like, it's actually this huge company. You'll probably see their brand in Korean movies or Korean food imports, but on the off chance you don't eat Bibigo or whatever else they have out there, then you might recognize Coldstone. Yeah, they actually do own that. SKT and KT are both mobile phone service providers, and I can't mention History and KT in the same video without also mentioning that at one point in time they were actually named Fingerboom. This is both a reason for and against KT being best KT. Samsung is Samsung. I'm not sure I really need to elaborate on that. STX was a shipping company or something not nearly as cool as the others, but still huge and now defunct. Hwasong Oz provides sportswear. I didn't know that. I had to Google this, but apparently it's a big thing. And while that isn't all of the Pro League teams, I will end this pseudo list with the fact that their freaking Air Force made a team, Air Force Ace. It was kind of the team league punching bag, but it was still really cool that, like the Air Force, played in esports tournaments. Now, this just about sums up StarCraft eSports until a pretty pivotal moment, which is the announcement of StarCraft 2 in 2007. Pretty big deal. That's, 9 years, because I can do math, where they just thought that Brood War was really going to be it. And then 2007 was a huge announcement. Actually, I have a clip here, and you can hear the hype when people realize what exactly is happening. Well, it was pretty hype at the time. Of course, no one could tell the future, and I think I'd have to do an entire other video to really describe what StarCraft 2 coming into the esports scene really meant for Brood War and StarCraft esports, or rather esports overall. So I'll just wait on that. And the point is, StarCraft was announced in 2007. It was, of course, was released in 2010 with Wings of Liberty. Brood War would still have a long time left before it died, with very, very heavy air quotes here, because it's not dead and probably never will be. But most of its infrastructure was forcefully moved to StarCraft 2, starting with the zombified Brood War StarCraft 2 Hybrid Pro League in 2012, and then eventually moving all to StarCraft 2 in 2013. But good games never die. Brood War is still enjoyed by thousands of people on a daily basis, and if you're really out of the loop, then I have to bring up the fact that it is also being remastered after 20 years, so if you haven't already checked it out, please do. And that just about does it for the video. We learned about the development of StarCraft, what StarCraft Vanilla looked like a little bit before Brood War, and what Brood War developed from 1999 to even today in 2017. So I hope you all enjoyed the video, and see you next time for some more StarCraft history.